Peace. Welcome to Faith Expressions. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. In this video, I would like to share my story of my vocation that God has given me. So, I am doing this video for two reasons, among many. First and foremost, to celebrate my 24th year in the priesthood. I celebrated August 4th of this year. And I am journeying to celebrate my silver jubilee, my 25th. May God give me the grace to be able to arrive at that year for next year and then the years ahead. Another reason why I would like to make this video is for vocation campaign. I hope that there would be some single men, single women who would consider dedicating their life, consecrating their life for the service of God in His church, be it in the priesthood or in the religious life. So the second part is about the journey of vocation in my seminary years. You have known how I grew up. So I was brought to the seminary when I was 12 years old. After graduation from my 6th grade, going to the seminary, there was the entrance examination. I even do not know if I passed. Maybe I didn't pass, or maybe I passed. So I was accepted to the seminary. And maybe you and I, even then, would think I had to go to the seminary to escape the work, the work I was having at home. But in any case, it may be that way. God only knows. But it was my mother who told me, we would like to send you to the seminary for your high school formation. And the agreement was between her and myself, my father included, that I would stay in the seminary, in the high school seminary, to learn only the study habits. And I don't have the problem with hard work. I know how to work. I don't have problem with obedience. I obey. I don't have the problem with rules. I follow rules. At home, my mother very strict. My father as well. So I know all of that. But the study, academics, that was my weakest point. And so they asked me, what do you want to become? I want to become an engineer. My mother said, then you need to have a good foundation in academics. So we send you to the seminary. So that's why I began my seminary years. Now, since the agreement was just to learn study habits, after my first year, my mother said, now is the time to go out. You will have to continue outside. I said, no, I want to go back to the seminary because the formators, the priest, told me I can come back. So I went back to the seminary. My mother said, okay, go back. My mother would have been thinking that I may not be able to cope up with the demands in the seminary, especially with the academics. And by the second year, I was able to learn that it was hard. I do not know how to study. I could understand somehow, but then it just dawned on me, just a click into my mind. I just have to repeat and repeat, reading over and over my notes, reading over and over our lessons. Then some things now was making sense, and I was making more and more able to be good at examinations or quizzes. So, to make the story short, in this story of my vocation in the seminaries, from high school to college in philosophy and theology, I would like to answer 3 questions. These are the questions I am usually asked. The first question is, when did I learn that I am being called by God? Or how did I learn that God is calling me? There is no specific or one spot answer to this question. I would answer by saying, God's action was all through the way of my vocation, through moments and events in my journey of vocation. That is how I would put it. Moments and events. Example, academic area. As I have said, this is my weak point. But then, from that moment that I learned to study in my own way, but I could now able to answer well. I am now able to talk. In the seminary, from high school, we were told to speak English, except during weekends. At first, you feel awkward, you feel ashamed because grammatically it was wrong, or pronunciation-wise, it was not good. But then, just had to speak English. Even now, I don't know if I am even good at speaking English, but in a way, I survived. So, academics was my weak point. But then, I was able to be good at the quizzes and examinations. And then, I landed in college. I was doing good. I ended up in college being silver medalist. We graduated philosophy with silver medal. In the comprehensive exam, I was the top notcher for the comprehensive exams. Was it my doing? No, God's doing. In the way I learned. For the theology, academic area, theology, I was sent to Rome as a scholar. And in Rome, I just also have to study. And I studied hard. Every time there will be the examination, I would study and prepare. And the last day before the exam, I will just relax. Go to confession. That is what I have learned even from my college days. Because in my college days, I have learned already the principle. Grace builds on nature, or grace builds nature. So already I understood, if God with grace can help me in my examinations, I would better also go, not only prepare my mind, but also prepare my heart by going to confession. So this is what I did. And everything went well. And I graduated my theology. I ended up with magna cum laude, bachelor's in theology in Rome. I believe God is calling me with this moment and event, as I have said, in this area of academics. God worked in my life with His grace. The second area is financial. Our family was not a well-off family. My mother, a teacher, my father, government employed. Both of them were government employed. We were 4 siblings, so we were 4 who are going to go to studies. In all my seminary years, my parents supported me. In the Philippines, it is the parents who pay the tuition, etc. So to say, I am a scholar of my parents. So, after I graduated college, philosophy, I asked my rector, our rector, that I will not proceed right away to theology. I would like to stop for 1 year so that I could help my parents have their money in now to give as well to my siblings who are now entering college as well. And I also explained to the bishop, because they thought that I had a problem with my vocation. I said, no, my only problem was financial. I told them, I want to help my parents. On that year that I was out, my father got sick, and very sick, heart ailment. And so all the money and the funds would go to his hospitalization. Now, my bishop asked my parish priest, to make the story short, where is Jopel? Because during that time, I was on leave. And so I was not going every day to Mass because I was working. I would go to the church on Sunday. My parish priest told the bishop that he is there. He still goes to the church. And my bishop said, let him come here. I want to talk to him. I went to the bishop, and my bishop talked to me. And would you be able to go back to the seminary? Yes, but financially, this is precisely the situation. And so my bishop told me, stay with me and you serve me here. So I went back home. I told my parents, this is the decision of the bishop. And my mother and my father said, you go. This is your calling. And I served the bishop in his daily masses. I prayed with the bishop during prayer times in his private chapel. I was with the bishop wherever he would go, going to visit parishes. I would be with him. There was a time that my bishop was called Bishop's Conference meeting. So he told me, go home and I will be looking for a sponsor for you. I was very happy. And so I would go back to the seminary. I was happy, so I went back to our hometown. I went to the Mass daily. I served in the Mass daily, as well as during Sundays. I would go with the priest to the barrios, to the villages, even by hiking, to serve. And I heard that the bishop already came back. And the chancellor or the secretary of the bishop came to our parish. He was bringing a folder. And he said, Jopel, you fill this out. The bishop is calling it. So fill this out. So when I saw the papers were all in Latin. The documents were all in Latin, and I had to fill them out. I was able to answer all. And I said, where am I going? Why are these in Latin? And so the priest said, the bishop is sending you to Rome as a scholar. I said, I am not a priest. The priests are the ones being sent to Rome. I said, well, you are the first seminarian to be sent to Rome. And so about finances, so this is now looking back, this is what I can say. God was working. So this was the point, even then, that I could say, God is calling me. God is calling me. And so I went to Rome. My parents gave me $500 as pocket money. And I will be staying in Rome. I don't know. 3 years was the bachelor's in theology. So I had to stay there. $500. The first month, I already consumed $200. It was already third month or fourth month. I only have $200 remaining, and I have, imagine, 3 years in Rome. And there was a priest who was my rector in minor seminary. He was there in Rome because he was also sent by the bishop for further studies. he did in philosophy. So he said, "Oh, it's good now that I have seen you because I have been thinking of you. And I have a friend who can help you here in Rome. At least you would have a help in buying your monthly tessera, the bus ticket for 1 month. Thanks be to God, I have now a tessera." To make the story short, all through my years as a seminarian in Rome, in my theology, I didn't experience the scarcity of money or of something that I would really need. And I was able to meet friends, very generous people. They know that I was a seminarian, and they told me if I need something that I could go to them. And so even then I said, God is calling me, because even with this, I am well provided. And to make the story short, with the story of the 500 allowance. So I went back home. I gave back to my mother the extra 180 plus, around 200 still, of the 500. And after 4 years in Rome, the 500 had still an extra of around 200. I gave it to my mother because during this time when I arrived, it was only a few days for my priestly ordination. I was ordained deacon in Rome, and my priestly ordination, I chose to be ordained in my parish. They would not be able to go to Rome if I have chosen to be ordained in Rome for the priesthood. I told the bishop, after this ordination, I would go back and finish the licentiate and I can come back. The bishop said, it depends. The scholarship was open for further studies again, for doctorate. So the bishop said, you stay in Rome and finish the doctorate. So I had to obey. I finished the doctorate. But then, in all of this, there was this, God has done great things in academics, in finances. So how did I know God was calling me? Through these moments and through these events. Another thing I would like to mention is the idea of challenges. In the seminary, in my high school seminary, the bullying, these are bunch of kids. It is to be expected. High school kids, boys. For me, the challenge was bullying. But I believe God also made it happen, and the idea of the grace of endurance. There was the first year very hard. Second year, there was still some of those always from higher years. When I was in college, the difficulty and the challenge was about the order and the food and the water. We were called the pioneering class or the pioneering batch during this time, because the seminary newly opened. For a story, we will have to fetch, we were divided into groups. We will have to fetch water from the city and then bring the water, jugs of water, barrels of water to the seminary. The seminary was on top of a hill. Whoever is thirsty would go and fetch water from the barrel. And sometimes some seminarians would intentionally, some of the seminarians would eat with their hands, even if we were told to eat with our spoon and fork. But they would have their glass and then just take water from it, and rice would fall into the water. We survived, and there was the understanding that in all of these things, this is just something to pass through. If it means I am called, then I will survive. When I was in Rome as a seminarian in theology, my first time to ride a plane was already to go to Europe. And so it was hard to be away from the family. Of course, I have been away from the family since I was 12 years old, but I would be able to go home every now and then. But this time, you go to Rome. And in the plane while going to Rome, there was a song that was keep playing in my head. I forgot the title then, but just the song was playing in my head that I learned from my high school years. You shall cross the barren desert, and you shall not die of thirst. You shall wander far in safety, though you do not know the way. You shall speak your words in foreign lands, and they will understand. That was my first time to ride a plane, and I am going to Italy, I'm going to Rome. This one was playing in my head. Be not afraid, I go before you always. Come follow me, and I will give you rest. So it was just playing, and I didn't know why. But even I was away from my family, I didn't feel homesick, because every time something I would not feel right, that song would play in my head. And there was another song that was playing in my head sometimes. Yahweh's love will last forever, His faithfulness till the end of time. Yahweh is a loving God, Yahweh, the faithful one. This also would be playing in my head. And so you ask me with that question, how did I know that God was calling me? These are the answers, moments and events. And while still I was in college, I already had a prayer. Lord, if you are calling me, let me really stay in the seminary and bless me. But if you are actually not calling me and I am still here in the seminary, please send me out of the seminary. But I'm not going to do foolishness in order to be sent out. When I was also in Rome, I was repeating the same prayer from time to time. So that is the answer to the question. When did I know that I was called? Or how did I know that I am called to the priesthood? Moments and events in my life that I have known God was calling me. Now the second question that I am usually asked about vocation is this question. How were you able to stay on the journey? Didn't you find difficulty? How come that you just stayed on? Didn't you entertain going out? The answer to those questions are actually simple. Based already on what I have said about the first question, God, I know in my mind and in my heart already that God is doing something in my life. The action of God was already there. Very explicit, very tangible for me. And so to answer why I stayed on is because of this. Though there were challenges I encountered, I was given the grace to endure and be patient. And though there was the scarcity, maybe finances, I was given the grace and blessings so that I can just stay on the journey. And in all through the years of my seminary formation, God has given me the grace of the joy of each moment. I like to be in the seminary, and then also the sense of fulfillment in just being in the journey of vocation. This is how I can answer that question. And though there were challenges, I was given the grace to endure. Though there was scarcity, I was given blessings in order that I would just stay on the journey. And through all the years, I had the joy of each moment and the sense of fulfillment through it all. So that is why I stayed on the journey of vocation. The third question that usually is given me about my vocation was, who are my inspirations, or what was my inspiration? First and foremost, my inspiration was my parents, my mother and my father. Again, my father told me, if you are in this journey, you have to finish it because you are the firstborn. And if you are the firstborn, you have to show to your younger siblings that you are able to finish it, so that they also will finish their studies. It is not that I had to, but I believe the principle that my father was telling me, I believe that God uses it as His urgings for me to follow through my vocation, the calling He has given me. My mother just said, actually, she told me this story before going to Rome, and she repeated this story when I was about to be ordained a priest. I was born, she had the difficulty in giving birth to me. The doctors, I was told, were use a forceps to pull me out, and my mother put her fingers here. I had a wound here. Thanks be to God, there is no scar, and I could not go out. So they opened her, and because they opened her, closing her back, after 3 days, my mother felt there's something inside her stomach, and there was still a forceps left in her stomach, and so they had to open her again. I was already home with my grandparents, and my mother was still in hospital. I was told she was in hospital for 30 days while I was already at home. Maybe complications. You see, and my mother told me I was offered to the Lord already. She told me that she talked to the Lord that if you would want, Lord, I give this, I offered my son to you. I was offered to the cross, according to my mother. My parents had this devotion to the Holy Cross, and there was a fraternity of the Holy Cross in my parish. So they said that they had to sponsor a feast for that on my behalf, so that I would have a good health, because I was born in that kind of situation. And so the idea here is that this story, after I learned for my theology, inspired me. And so my parents were my inspiration, my siblings as well, because I am the eldest. And then my parish priest was also my inspiration. I saw him praying his breviary. I saw him praying the rosary. I would listen to how he would talk to people. So I am also thankful to the Lord of my seminary formators. My seminary formators in high school, my seminary formators in college, and especially as well my seminary formators in theology in Rome. The priests were inspiring for me. Even some have gone out of the priesthood, but I will not be offended of that. During the time that they were my formators, they were good priests. They were teaching what they were supposed to teach. It is up to them for whatever decisions they would make. So I am very thankful to the Lord. The third one, I am very inspired of my many friends during my seminary years. My peers, whom I have grown up with, especially during Christmas time or during summertime. My parents would throw a party at home, and so that I could invite my peers, my friends, and we had a party. There was food, there was also drinks. I have learned to drink beer and whiskey and other things at home. Because my parents said, we permit you to drink. So, if you are going to drink, we will give you money to drink, but you are going to drink only at home. So, call your friends and drink at home. So I would do that. And my friends would be happy, are always happy to come to our house. Boys and girls, my mother would have somebody cook for us something, or we would cook. I know how to cook. We would cook our pulutan, our, so to say, knickknacks, in order to have our little party. I grew up with this, and I am inspired by that. The joy of being with friends, I was able to enjoy it all through my seminary years. During summertime, we would go to the beach. During Christmas time, we would have our party, and sometimes the party we will bring to the beach. In the Philippines, you can go to the beach anytime you want, except during typhoon. So there was joy in that. And I'm inspired by my friends. Even now, we are still in contact with my friends. And they pray for me. And they are supportive of me as a priest. And the last thing about the inspiration, who inspired me, I would again be reminded to answer this question by saying, the lives of the saints. The lives of the saints have inspired me. And I believe all through my seminary years, the saints that my mother told me about their stories, I believe they have prayed for me. Saint Francis of Assisi, Saint Anthony of Padua, the kings who were saints, the queens who were saints, many other saints that even now I have forgotten. I wanted to become a Salesian because of Saint John Bosco, of Don Bosco. Repeatedly, I have heard many of his stories. I was inspired by the lives of the saints. And so even now, I call on the saints. My doctorate dissertation, my thesis, was on prayer in Saint Bede, the Venerable. So I studied Saint Bede. All the more that it was good for me to study a saint and the writings and the teachings. And so from time to time I would call Saint Bede, pray for me. And I have studied the Gospel of Saint John because of my thesis in my licentiate in theology. So I studied the Gospel of Saint John and other literatures around the Gospel of Saint John. The thesis was the salvific value of the cross of Christ in the Gospel of Saint John. That was my thesis, because this was in the branch of soteriology. I am inspired by the lives of the saints. And so, to conclude this story of my vocation, along the years of my formation, seminary formation, three things. First and foremost, I have learned to never be afraid in anything. There were times that it was difficult, but never came into my mind that I would give up. That God has given me the courage to just be persevering. Never easily give up on anything. Do not be afraid. Second is that in seminary formation, there will always be a lot of people who would be of help. A lot of people who would be an inspiration. A lot of people who would give good advice. The third I have learned, just have to be open-minded and open-hearted. I am always learning. It helped me a lot. Now I can mention, it helped me a lot. The Desiderata, that poem, Desiderata said, listen to everyone, because even the ignorant has their own story to tell. And so I always remember that. Early on I have learned, I just have to be a learner. With this, I end my sharing, and I hope this would be of help to those who are searching vocation in their life. And to those, all of you, please pray for priests all over the world. Pray for vocations to the priesthood. And please pray for me. God bless. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen. Thank you for listening, and please subscribe if you have not done so, and share this video to others. God bless.